that are going to be sharing some components of that, and we will be communicating that to you. As you saw, probably there's a recording notification there. Just click OK, and that should clear off your screen. Before we get started, I wanted to say some things regarding our current circumstances. Please know that we are working hard to do the right thing for our students, staff, and our community in these ever-changing and uncertain times. We are relying on guidance and information from our state and federal government, and that, in many cases, is incomplete, inconsistent, and is very dynamic and ever-changing. Working in collaboration with the BCIU and other school districts in the county, we are attempting to have a collaborative and consistent countywide response. However, this does not mean we will all be doing the same thing. Our plan, which at this time includes us returning to in-person instruction, will be posted on the district website for public review by the end of the month and will be scheduled for approval at our August 12th board meeting. Some of the things I want to review with you tonight before we get started are some regulations that the Department of Education allowed us to forego during the months of March through June of 2020. However, they have been very clear that we must adhere to those regulations. That's 180 school days, or its equivalent, 900 hours of education at the elementary level, 990 hours of education at the secondary level. This must be documented and submitted to the state for approval every year. And if we are not providing in-person full-time instruction, we must provide to the state that documentation as well. Like I said, some latitude was given during March and June. However, the department has made it very clear that those regulations must be met moving forward. And I know we'll meet those marks because we were all part of a great effort in March when we shut down for 2 weeks on Friday the 13th. Little did we know that that would end up being a shutdown for the rest of the school year. And we can be proud that we were the only district in the county to begin instruction in some form for our students that very next Monday, March the 16th. We can be proud that our staff and teachers rose to levels not even imagined and went above and beyond all expectations. We can be proud that our community received the academic support it deserved from the first-class educational institution that is Conrad Weiser. I want to thank our teachers and students for their continued work to make the Conrad Weiser Area School District a great place. In our efforts to gauge the sentiment of our staff, students, and community, we sent a survey out to gauge many areas. The purpose of the survey was to be able to provide a window into what our local community felt with regard to some of the key issues we need to respond to. As you know, opinions can vary depending on the day, the time, or the news station or the reporter. I wanted to be sure that we communicated what the Conrad Weiser community was thinking and feeling in these areas. Our survey, which was open from July 6th through July 13th, yielded the following. During the time the survey was open, we had 1,901 respondents to the survey. As you can see the breakdown, students, employees, parents, and guardians were all afforded the opportunity to respond. In the survey, we asked 2 questions to all 3 groups. Those questions were, do you want school to open for in-person instruction in the fall? And should a face covering be worn when social distancing is not possible? As you can see, 78% of students, 74% of parents and guardians, and 7 out of 10 employees want school to open for in-person instruction in the fall. Face coverings should be worn when social distancing is not possible. 51% of students agree or strongly agree with that. 68% of parents and 73% of employees. Now, with regard to face coverings, understand that as the governor and our government changes the mandates and updates the mandates, we will follow the orders and the laws from our government. Right now, the mandate is for mandatory masking when social distancing is not possible, and that includes the school setting. The next questions we asked, this question was responded to by both students and parents about face coverings on the bus. You can see the responses there. Again, understanding that the governor's orders trump our recommendations. And overall, does the Conrad Weiser Area School District promote the health, safety, and welfare of students in the community? 93% of parents agree or strongly agree that we promote the health, safety, and welfare of the students and the community, and 90% of our employees agree or strongly agree, which are very, very strong results. Some questions we asked directly to the students. Are you worried about getting sick if you come back? 60% of the students are not worried if they get sick if they return. 83% of students reported that they missed their teachers during the shutdown, which is a testament to the rapport that our educators build with our children. 92% missed their friends during the shutdown, and 71% of students reported that it was harder for them to learn at home than at school, an important piece of information for us as educators. Parents or guardians, we asked you, if your child rides a bus to school, do you still plan to send them on the bus? And 2/3 of parents who responded indicated that they are still planning to send their child on a bus. 53% of parents were comfortable if face coverings were not required in the classroom. 93% of parents reported that they have a reliable internet connection at home and available for their children. 54% that reported that their children did not learn well during the shutdown. And that of the top 3 greatest challenges identified, the top 2 by far were separation from classmates and separation from teachers. 71% of parents reported being somewhat or very comfortable with the start of school being August the 24th. Our employees responded to some questions specifically for them. 35% of employees reported being comfortable if face coverings are not required. 73% of employees believe that all staff should have their temperatures taken at the start of each workday. 56% are generally worried about returning to work in the fall, and only 21% believe that children can learn just as well remotely as they can in the classroom. And 2/3 of the employees reported being somewhat or very comfortable with the start of school being August 24th. So why are these pieces of information so important? Well, it's important to understand the community in which we're serving, so that way we can make the best decisions with the information that we have at hand. Today we're going to talk a little bit more in a question-answer format with some of the folks who are responsible for the health and safety of our children here in the Conrad Weiser Area School District. And so I've asked some of those folks to be on the call with us today. On the call with us right now is Bev Yoder, one of our school nurses. Bev, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, Bev, thanks for being here with us and answering some of these questions. I want to talk about masks for a second. Bev, many of the questions I've received from families is about the wearing of masks or face coverings. What can you tell us about what to expect in this area, and will students be required to wear masks?
Well, according to the CDC and the Pennsylvania Department of Health, wearing a mask or some type of face covering is one of the main ways to limit the spread of COVID-19. A face covering essentially protects you from me and me from you by containing any droplets, mucus, saliva that may unknowingly be expelled from the mouth or nose when you talk, you sing, cough, or sneeze. In our current district pandemic, when you review it, once it goes online, you'll notice that under mask, it does say that masks are recommended but not required unless ordered by the governor. And as you know, as of July 1st, the governor placed a mandate on all individuals living in the Commonwealth, other than if you're under the age of 2, including all staff and students, to wear a face covering when social distance is not available. This mandate will remain in place until the Secretary of Health determines that the public health risk has sufficiently been reduced so that face coverings are no longer necessary as a widely used public health tool. So therefore, face coverings will be required in all school buildings, at bus stops, and while riding the bus, and anytime social distancing isn't possible. A face covering has to be worn a face covering has to be either a fabric mask or a face shield, both providing coverage to the mouth and nose when properly used. Many of you have been out and about and noticed that people are not wearing their masks correctly. And so in order to do that, again, you have to have it covering your mouth and your nose. And I've seen people wearing it below their nose, which is not correct, or even some wearing on their chin. So you must have your nose and your mouth covered. Students may remove their masks if the following conditions are met, and that is eating or drinking when at least 6 feet apart. If the desk or if they're seated at least 6 feet apart in the classroom. If they're engaged in any activity where they're at least 6 feet apart, or when wearing a mask covering creates an unsafe condition in which to operate equipment or execute tasks. If you have any questions regarding this mask requirement, I would encourage you as a parent to contact your building administrator.
Thank you, Bev. Speaking of the topic of social distancing, the PA Department of Health has identified one of the components of controlling the spread of COVID to be social distancing, as you mentioned. What can you tell us about what to expect in this area?
Well, as you said, social distancing is one of those fundamental pieces of limiting the spread of COVID-19. However, social distancing does create some unique challenges in the school setting where students typically congregate in close proximity to one another in a typical school day. So the few recommendations that you'll notice on the plan when you read it online, they will include things like obviously maintaining a distance of 6 feet between individuals as feasible, creating one-way traffic patterns in the hallway or walking single file. As long as there's that, you can be in opposing directions as long as there's a minimum of 6 feet between individuals walking in the hallway. Limiting students congregating in common areas, positioning all desks facing forward. Unlike if you're in the elementary school, a lot of times those desks are placed in a pod fashion and they really need to be face forward. And the reason for that is that, if you would cough or sneeze, even if you have a mask on, it would hit the person in the back and not on their face, because the virus is going to enter your body either through your eyes, your nose, or your mouth. And so it's important that we limit the spray of any coughs or sneeze or spitting through speech to your neighbor. The next thing is limiting shared items when feasible, and then cleaning and disinfecting between uses. Keeping belongings separated as much as possible, altered seating patterns in the cafeteria, distancing during recess as feasible, no hugging, no shaking hands, no high fives, no holding hands. Essentially, there's no physical contact allowed, or should be allowed in the school setting. There's going to be plexiglass barriers in high volume areas such as the main office, guidance office, the nurse's office, the library checkout area, as well as in the cafeteria at the cashier station. Now, understanding all these social distancing you must understand it's unique by design because each building is different, developmentally students are different throughout the buildings, and so these recommendations may look different in each building. So the building principals are working on a social distancing plan in each building with the goal of protecting the health and safety of all students and staff.
Thank you, Bev. And Bev, one more question for you in this area, and I would ask you to hang on the line there. We have some others to talk about, but Bev, making sure our hands are washed and sanitized frequently is important as well, probably one of the basic ways to stop the spread. If students do not have access to be able to wash their hands at a time during school, what should they do?
Well, absolutely. Washing your hands is essential into limiting the spread of COVID. And the reason for that is, our hands are very germy. They're touching here, there, and everywhere. And again, the way the germs get in your body is through your eyes, your nose, and your mouth. And so it's important to keep your hands clean by washing them for 20 seconds frequently throughout the day. And of course, there's certain times that you should do that, which we're all aware of. However, sometimes washing your hands is not possible. And so facilities has placed, or it will be placing, hand sanitizing stations throughout all of the buildings. So will be available to everyone to use as needed, like outside the cafeteria, maybe outside the library, just different areas where there's a high volume of students going in and out of that area. It is good to note that the hand sanitizer has been changed. Last year it was not an alcohol base, but according to CDC, it must have at least a 60% alcohol base, and ours is a 70% alcohol base that will be placed in those containers and available for student use.
Great, Bev. Thank you for that information. Another area of great concern for us as parents and I'm sure you have, and our staff as well, is cafeteria and food services. Our food service director could not be with us on the call tonight, so I'll be speaking on her behalf. And the question we were wondering about is if students are coming back to in-person instruction as we are planning, many are interested to hear how meals will be served and what protocols and procedures will be in place to make sure the cafeteria is as safe as possible. So I'm going to talk about some changes in practice in cafeteria service that will take place. Upon entering the cafeteria, students are encouraged to wear face coverings upon entering the cafeteria and while in line for service. Once the student is seated in a designated area, the face covering can be removed. Students will be encouraged to either wash their hands or use hand sanitizer provided at stations prior to consuming food or beverages. The food service department is working with each individual building and building principal to meet their needs with seating arrangements and alternative areas to consume meals. Each building will operate based on their needs when it comes to serving breakfast. This may include grab-and-go breakfast when students enter the building, alternative dining areas, and socially distanced tables. Students will not be permitted to serve themselves, so no salad bars or self-serve stations will be available. All meal components will be served by a food service worker on disposable trays, disposable plates, bowls, and some items may be prepackaged. Meal condiments will be limited and provided to students on the tray. Selection of fruits and vegetables and other menu items will be limited. Parents and guardians will be encouraged to deposit funds using the online payment portal, avoiding the handling of cash and checks in the cafeterias. Students will be required to verbally communicate their student ID to access meal accounts. ID pin pads will not be available. Food service staff will be required to wear face coverings and gloves while preparing and serving food. This can include either a face mask or shield, and staff will be asked to take their temperatures prior to starting their shift. Sneeze guards will be placed at serving lines and registers to separate food service staff and students. Student dining areas and cafeteria serving areas will be thoroughly cleaned and sanitized between each lunch period. So as you can see, there are measures that are being taken to ensure that the safety to our students and our staff in the cafeteria is in place. On the line with us, we have Billy Harrison. He's our athletic director. Billy, thanks for getting on the call. He's muted. Well, he is muted. We'll get you unmuted, Billy. Hold on.
I'm here.
There you go. There you go. We can't do that in real life, though, Billy, but that's all right. All right, Billy, good to see you. Hey, I have a question for you, Billy. Sports are a big part of our community. How are sports being impacted, and how is the district working to keep our student athletes and spectators safe?
So right now we are operating under an extracurricular health and safety plan that was school board approved at the June meeting that covers the summer months, which is what our kids are doing right now in voluntary workouts. So you'll see on campus all of our high school teams that are engaging in voluntary optional workouts as approved by the state and PIAA. I wish I could give a little bit more concrete information for the actual fall season that's slated to start on August 17th, but all we really have to go on is that PIAA, which is the governing body of our athletics, did say that they expect to start on time, which is August 17th. However, they did just release today that they are coming out with sport-specific guidelines and restrictions for each sport that will be released next week. I'm not sure what those are going to look like, but I would let the community know that your sports will probably look different than they did in the past, and that hopefully you will still be able to watch in person, although we don't know if that will be allowed or not. If anyone's interested in our health and safety plan for the summer, it is posted on our district website right now.
All right, thank you, Billy, and we will keep everybody updated on information that we get when we get it. So thank you.
Yep.
I want to talk a little bit about our facilities. We have our Director of Facilities, Eric Letts, on the call with us here, and we're going to get him unmuted. Eric, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me, Dr. Giffey?
Yes, Eric, thank you very much for being with us. Eric, keeping our schools clean is very important. Your crew does an amazing job. So it's important, and especially during this current situation, it's heightened. What enhancements are being made to the school environments to ensure that those environments are as clean and disinfected as possible?
Okay, well, first of all, thank you. We are very diligent about keeping the school clean and sanitized, even pre-COVID and certainly now thereafter. So we've been doing a lot of work getting ready to provide the safest environment for education possible. Some of the things we are working with local vendors to install plexiglass shielding at common face-to-face interaction areas, such as the libraries, main offices, nurses' offices, counseling offices, and cafeterias. We will enhance our cleaning and sanitizing protocols, target high-touch surfaces with safe hospital-grade disinfectants, and we'll continue this process throughout the school year. As Bev Yoder said, Mrs. Yoder, throughout the district, Purell wall and stand-mounted hand sanitizers will be added. We currently have hand sanitizers in most, if not all, classrooms, but we'll be adding them to our high impact areas also. The bottle filling stations will replace water fountains in some areas throughout all buildings. If replacements are not possible, water fountains will be disabled, except in our cafeterias.
Thanks, Eric. And I have to say, just real quick on the Purell hand sanitizers, they'll be touchless, battery operated, and those that agreement was inked by our facilities department pre-pandemic. So this was something that we were already planning, and so I applaud your department for their forethought in taking those actions. Eric, another question for you regarding facilities. Obviously, there are lots of concerns about maintaining fresh air in the buildings. I know we have an HVAC system that recycles fresh air through fresh air intakes on each unit, but can you talk about how our ventilation systems are going to operate to keep us safe?
Yeah, sure. Great question. One we've been giving a lot of thought and research. You are correct. Our heating and air conditioning units do bring in outside air into the buildings in accordance with ASHRAE requirements for school buildings. Our building automation system can be set to circulate air in the classrooms by blower fans. And what we've done in the past to conserve energy is to set the system, much like many homes can be set, to occupancy mode when the buildings are in use, and vacancy mode when the buildings are not in use, like overnight. To help maintain the fresh air circulation and to reduce airborne exposure, we're going to continue to have our system set to a 24/7 occupied setting where the fans will be running all the time. This will continue to purge the spaces and exchange the air in the classrooms throughout the buildings many times a day. So thank you for asking me, Dr. Giffing, to speak from the facilities perspective.
And thank you, Eric, for that. I know that you and your crew are working very hard to get all those cleaning materials in place and set up. So thank you for that work.
You're welcome.
Big question on a lot of people's minds. I've heard it through email. I've gotten, through our survey, and people stop me in the grocery store and ask me this question. To answer this question best, we have Maggie Shear. She coordinates our transportation. Maggie, have we got you unmuted yet? You look like you're all set.
Yep, I'm unmuted. I'm here. Hello.
All right, fantastic. Fantastic, Maggie. Hey, Maggie, we provide transportation for many of our students to and from school. When we return to in-person instruction, will buses be running, number one, and how will we improve our procedures in the area of transportation to make this as safe as possible for our students?
Okay, so currently I'm working pretty hard at streamlining some of the bus runs so that, sorry, my dog sneezed. Some of the bus runs so that you may have to walk a little further to a stop, but we won't be making as many stops along the way, which in a lot of instances will shorten your child's bus run. Your bus stop probably for many of you look a little bit different than it did before. Masks will be required on the bus and at the bus stop. Reducing the number of children on buses rather. We're striving for 2 per seat. Family members will be seated together. We will be loading back to front. Children will be seated always with the same child on the bus. And we'll be loading, oh, I did say that, loading rear to front and then getting off front to rear. We will also be having the windows open to promote more airflow through the vehicles whenever it's possible. Obviously, if we're having a monsoon, that's not going to happen, but we are working towards those goals.
Great, Maggie. Another question for you. Do parents have an option of driving their students to school? And if they so choose, how would this impact your bus schedules?
Okay, so yes, we are actually encouraging parents, if they can, to drive their children to school. And it will change bus times depending on the amount of ridership, which is why there will be a survey coming out to you asking you what you think your transportation will look like for this school year. And I would really appreciate it if everyone would fill it out and get it back to us as soon as possible. Once we see how many students we don't have on the bus, we find we're going to need to make adjustments, you'll be notified prior to us making adjustments to your bus schedule. But it is definitely a possibility that bus times will be significantly lower if we have a significantly lower number of children riding the bus.
So Maggie, just to clarify that point, so if I have 2 children, which I do, who ride a bus, which they do, but I choose to drive them to school and I let the district know, you will remove them from rostered on the bus, so that way you can spread those students out at a greater distance on that bus, and you could also possibly maximize efficiency on that route, which will result in a shorter bus ride for students who must ride the bus?
That is exactly correct. And that being said, if you choose to take your child off the bus, it doesn't have to be a permanent removal. Once COVID lets up and you decide you want to go back on the bus, that's a simple fix for us. It's just a temporary, if you decide for right now, I don't feel good about it, I don't want my child on the bus, we can remove them, and that gives us a better idea of what we're looking at for others.
Great, and that survey will be coming out tomorrow to parents, and they do have the option in that survey of indicating that they want to continue with transportation, they want to decline transportation for the school year, or there's also the option of declining transportation just through the end of the year through December 31st, and then picking transportation up again in January. And I'm sure as this situation continues to change, we should have a lot more information by that time. So thank you, Maggie, for all that information.
Sure.
Here with us, we have our superintendent, Dr. Grove. Dr. Grove, thanks for being here.
Absolutely, thank you.
So Dr. Grove, just a question for you it's been coming through. I know, we've been working, I know you've been working in some groups and I've been working with some county groups, but looking at the upcoming school year, Dr. Grove, has there been any collaboration with other school districts in the county? And what are plans for the start, what are the plans for the start of school for Conrad Weiser? Has there been any consideration given to an AB schedule, a virtual hybrid schedule option for parents? What are we looking at?
Yes, this is a great question, and in fact, you referenced the date March 13th, and then that's when the governor shut us down in the spring, and then on March 16th, we started teaching our students online. That week of March 16th, all of the county superintendents started meeting in a Zoom format, very similar to what we're doing here tonight. We've been meeting once or twice a week ever since, and we were meeting early on to coordinate how we were closing schools. And this summer, we started meeting together to coordinate how we're going to open schools. Many of us in almost every district have put out surveys to our families, to our students, and to our staff. In our district, and you saw the results of our survey, overwhelmingly, our families and students and staff want to come back face-to-face, and that is our plan A. That's what we'd like to do. I think we all know, and the survey bears it out, that is the best result educationally for our students. They didn't think they did so great online, and our teachers bore that out as well in the survey. So our plan A is to come back face-to-face. We do realize that this is a fluid situation. The governor could change that at any time, but our plan right now is to come back face-to-face, but we are going to be making plans to pivot. We understand that the virus could come back stronger, and we might have to go back to online. So we are going to be making alternate plans just in case we have to go back to an online situation.
All right, thank you, Dr. Grove. So yes, so we are planning multiple scenarios here with our initial plan, our plan A being full return to instruction at the beginning of our academic year, which is on the calendar that you all have access to, which was board approved. Thank you for that. I want to get back to our school nurse that's on the line, Mrs. Yoder. Couple of things that have been really top of mind in the world, and that is COVID exposure. Bev, should there be a positive case of COVID exposure in the district, what would happen and how long would that person have to be out of the district? And would there be any contact tracing to find out who else may have been exposed? Can you talk about that?
Sure thing. Well, yeah, I have been thinking about COVID and nothing else since school let out, trust me. But I just want to explain the difference between an exposure and an actual case, because I think it's two different scenarios. But if, for example, I just want to say that the COVID is a reportable case. And so if there were a positive case or if there was a need for contact tracing, the Department of Health would be first involved, and then thereby directing the school on what we need to do to keep kids safe in our building, including contacting the family of a student with COVID, contacting all the individuals that they've had contact with, and that is called contact tracing. We would also assist the Department of Health with identifying individuals who had had contact with that student. And contact is defined as being within 6 feet of an individual who is infected for at least 15 minutes. And so if you think about someone in a classroom in an elementary building where they're really there all day, that certainly would be considered an exposure of the students within that classroom as well as the teacher. But if those students were walking in the hallway in opposing directions, that's a very brief contact, so that would not be considered an exposure. If an individual is exposed to someone with COVID-19, you would be notified by the Department of Health, and they would recommend you quarantine at home for 14 days. And then if you don't develop symptoms within that time, you may return to school and return to normal activity. If you develop symptoms during that time, then you would be expected to stay at home. First of all, you're not going to feel that great, but you would be expected to be at home for at least a minimum of 10 days, with 24 hours of that 10th day being fever-free without fever-reducing medication. The Department of Health will assist the school in looking at risk assessment as far as I said, with positive cases and exposures, recommending isolation and quarantine. But it's the center to all this is the confidentiality of all students affected or staff affected will be respected, and it would be important that this would not be something that would get out to the public through rumor and so forth. I do believe Dr. Grove said yesterday that if there was a case, that there would be some kind of contact that would go out to the community, but without identifying that student.
That's a good point. That is correct. We would protect the HIPAA and FERPA rights of our students and our families. However, we would alert the community to that public health situation, yes. So one more question for you. You mentioned quarantining. Will the school be screening students, and how will students who display COVID-like symptoms during the course of the school day, how would that be handled?
Okay, so we are not going to be doing screening or temperature screening upon arrival to school, which I know we've seen on TV when people go into businesses or daycares, we see that happening, but that is not recommended by the Department of Health. And the main reason for that is that really the temperature can vary based on your activity before you come into the building. So for example, if you were on the bus or you're out running around, that could actually make your temperature elevate into maybe that red flag zone. So it's really not an effective tool to screen children before they come to school. So, upon arrival to school. What we are asking though is that parents do screen their children each day before coming to school, and that means taking their temperature. If it's anything above 100, we would advise parents to keep their child at home, continue to monitor them. If the temperature goes down, they're welcome to come back the next day, because 100 is kind of that low grade, is it going to go up, is it going to go down kind of temperature. We would also encourage parents to assess their child for illness before they come to school each day, whether or not they have signs of COVID or any kind of illness, or if they appear ill. We really recommend that those students stay home. It's also worth noting that if you do have a fever unrelated to COVID, that you must stay home for 72 hours after onset of fever and without fever-reducing medication. I also want to add that I know that you had asked, and I know this question is coming next, so I'm sorry. We were talking like if a student becomes ill during the school day with some type of suspected COVID illness, we would immediately place that student in an isolation room and call the parent immediately to come pick up that student. It's essential that students move fairly quickly from school to home to prevent any further contamination or exposure to personnel or to children in the building. We would refer that parent to their child's doctor, but as a district, we cannot require parents to have a COVID test done on their child. That's really up to the discretion of the physician to decide whether or not it's warranted. But should either way, they would return, if they had a fever, would return after 72 hours. And that also gives that 3 days really gives parents a chance to see where this illness is going to go. Typically, children would return after 24 hours of fever, but we really want to give that extra time because we just don't know how this is going to go and what it's going to look like. So we want to really protect everyone in the building by implementing the 72-hour window before returning.
Great, Beth, thank you. And you brought up a good point about contact information being as up to date as possible. We have our Scout information and review through our Skyward system. When you log into the Family Access portal, you'll be prompted every school year to update your contact information. And it is vital, not just in the pandemic situation, but in all situations, to have your contact information updated as accurately as possible. If you change phones or change emergency contacts, please make sure that information is updated and Skyward for the health, safety, and welfare of your student.
In addition, if I could just add, not only having your contact information up to date, but like I said, it's really essential that we move kids quickly from illness to home to the physician. And so if you aren't able to pick up your child, we really encourage you to have a backup plan. So if you're not able to come pick them up, then the next person online, that contact information is also up to date, so we can quickly get your child home and comfortable at home.
Yeah, good point. Thank you, Bev. We've had some number of questions regarding our online options. And on the call with us, we're going to get her unmuted here, is Dr. Alyssa Swigert. She is the coordinator of our Scout Virtual Academy. She's also one of our high school assistant principals. Dr. Swigert, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
All right, thank you for being on the call with us. Dr. Swigert, some parents have inquired about virtual options for their children. And we know the heavy burden cyber charter schools place on school district budgets, since the local taxpayer must pay for a child to attend a cyber charter school. Does the district have a virtual option for students, and can you tell us about that option?
Sure. We do have a virtual option for Weiser students in grades K through 12. The Scout Virtual Academy has been in existence for almost 10 years. It's an online learning platform using curriculum from a company called Accelerate Education, but we use Conrad Weiser teachers. So I'm the administrator for the program, and Mrs. Denise Rathman, a high school counselor, is the SVA counselor. SVA is a flexible, self-paced program that can be done anywhere at any time. Students are not restricted to a certain time of the day that they must be online. We offer the regular school district curriculum with course requirements and electives, but we can offer additional courses when requested. There are video lessons embedded in the program, and a certified Conrad Weiser teacher will monitor the student's progress and offers assistance when needed, and would be your main point of contact for that particular class. So due to the asynchronous nature of the program, we can use our Weiser teachers. They are available to meet in normal times, Zoom right now, after the regular school day for 1, one-on-one instruction if and when that is necessary. Students are also encouraged to interact with their online peers as well as their teachers regularly. We offer full and part-time options at all levels, although the part-time options usually work best at the high school level. The Accelerate program automatically sends weekly progress reports to parents and guardians, which is a nice feature, so everyone is kept in the loop and up to date on the progress of their student and their most up-to-date grade. Each student receives a laptop and technical support when necessary. If SVA students decide to return to traditional brick and mortar instruction, SVA provides a smooth transition if and when that's requested. So we offer rolling admission throughout the school year to and from SVA and back to the buildings. Students may participate in Conrad Weiser Area School District activities at all building levels. This includes field trips, class trips, fifth quarter, prom, extracurricular activities, sports, band, music, instrumental lessons. I just got asked this the other day, will they have their picture in the yearbook? Yes, they will. We send the information when picture day is, and they may come into the building and have their picture taken. After completing the program, students have the option to walk with their class at graduation and are issued the exact same Conrad Weiser diploma that everybody else gets. If your student does have some special learning needs, we always first consult with our Director of Special Education, Mrs. Jessica Head, who's also on this call, prior to enrolling the student. However, the first step is to contact me so we can discuss options customized for your child. Then I can put you in contact with our counselor for the enrollment process. If you have any questions, I welcome you to email me. Right now, I just ask for your patience as I've been receiving a lot of inquiries. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Swigert, for that information. We have, under typical circumstances, starting a position as an elementary school principal is a monumental task. Starting the job of elementary school principal under pandemic conditions is amazing. And we have two amazing elementary school principals who are new to us this year who started under these pandemic conditions. We have Christy Hoffman is the principal at West Elementary, and Melissa Rhodes is the principal at East Elementary. And Melissa is on the call with us today. Melissa, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Melissa, students have been out of school since March 13th, 2020, and come August, that's nearly 5 months away from school. And our kindergarten students are entering school for the first time under these circumstances. How are students going to be helped to feel comfortable and safe when they re-enter school in August?
Well, that's a two-part question, honestly, and I'm going to kind of go over some of the things that we may have already mentioned, so forgive me, but I really have to talk first about the dedicated custodial staff that we have that is working constantly to follow our cleaning protocols and make sure that the high-touch surfaces are disinfected so that any germs are killed and can't be spread. Our cafeteria staff are working hard to make sure that not only the serving area, but the lunch tables are sanitary for our students to sit, socialize, and enjoy their lunches. Secondly, our students' social and emotional safety is of the utmost importance. So we are so grateful to have a very loving group of teachers and support staff who can't wait to see their students. Our goal is to ensure that we create a welcoming environment in our schools as a whole, as well as individual classrooms, so that our students are able to develop relationships with their teachers and fellow students while feeling a sense of belonging. That's really important to both Christy and I know all of our administrative staff. Overall, we're looking into ways to ensure all students feel comfortable coming back to school. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Melissa, if you would, parents have reached out and expressed worry about bringing their children back to school, back to a school environment. What resources will the school have to offer students and families to help manage some of the worries associated with this situation?
I completely understand that, especially as a mom of a future kindergarten student. Specifically here at Weiser, our teachers are the first level of support for students always. You know, sometimes we refer to them as, you know, school mom or school dad at the elementary school. At the elementary school specifically, we've purchased a new social emotional learning curriculum to enable our teachers to better assist our students as they return to school. This program will help guide our teachers and leading students through conversations that will help them process their feelings. This program will be heavily used during the first few weeks of school as teachers are monitoring the social and emotional well-being of each of our students. Academic activities, we plan for them to be slowly introduced as we regularly reflect on the emotional needs of our students. The goal after the first few weeks is for our social emotional curriculum to be consistently used by teachers during their classroom discussion time, which will occur for about 30 minutes once during a 6-day cycle. At the same time, this curriculum can be used at any time if social emotional topics arise in individual grade levels or classrooms. We're going to use it throughout. In reference to communication, it's going to be essential for the school, for us to communicate to families and for families to communicate back to the school. It's really key for us to be in constant communication. We know that in many cases, children have a strong bond with their family members, and in many cases, this shutdown and the past 5 months that you've spent with your children has really helped you develop even stronger bonds with them. So please know if your child comes home and shares with you that they feel worried or have anxiety, it's really important to us that you reach out and share that, with us, remembering that teacher is the first line of defense, but remember we also have a school counselor and myself. We really want to do everything we can to support your child or children and make them feel safe and happy at school. Our school counselors have knowledge and access to community resources that can help support families during such a difficult time. They're always willing to help walk you through these recommended resources. Please know that.
Thank you, Melissa. And I have one more question. Some of the personal protective equipment, or PPE, as it's been come to be known widely, that's being recommended will cover a teacher's mouth and nose. Some parents have expressed concern about their children not being able to see the teacher's smile, which can be very comforting. Are there any provisions for this?
Yes, that was definitely a concern for us as well. District-wide, we have ordered clear face shields that will be provided for all faculty and staff to use.
Yes, and as we know, face shields, we can use face shields when giving instruction. We also have ordered the PPE for our teachers, which includes face masks as well. Thank you, Mrs. Rhodes, and welcome to Conrad Weiser under these crazy circumstances. Our final section that I'd like to discuss tonight is with regard to students with disabilities and IEPs. Mrs. Jessica Head is our Director of Special Education. Mrs. Head, are you on the call?
I am. Thank you, Dr. Giffing.
All right. Thanks for hanging in here. We're in 50 minutes into this Zoom, and that's a long time to be on a Zoom. Mrs. Head, IEPs are by nature individualized. How will a child's individual needs be taken into consideration during the reopening?
Well, first, Dr. Giffing, you are very correct in your statement that every student's IEP, or individualized education plan, is already customized to meet each student's educational needs. We here at Weiser have missed our students greatly. And as we plan for the reopening, we are keeping in mind these already identified needs when making our plans for the students' return. We also intend to work with parents through IEP team meetings to determine if programmatic changes would be necessary upon return.
So you're saying it's an IEP team decision?
Yes, it's definitely something that as an IEP team, we'll sit down and discuss. Many parents have already reached out to me with questions regarding their specific child's needs, and we've been able to talk and pre-plan for a team meeting in the near future if necessary.
Great, thank you. Mrs. Head, some of the instruction that students with IEPs need requires them to see the mouth of their teacher. How can this happen if staff are wearing face coverings?
That's another great question. And just as Mrs. Rhodes had just discussed, the face shields will be available to staff. And for those teachers or faculty, including our paraprofessionals that work directly with students that support the students in the areas of basic reading skills, speech, or hearing impaired services, they will be supplied with a mask that contains a transparent window. This will provide students the opportunity for more visual cues while providing the staff the necessary face coverings and options that were recommended by the CDC and Department of Health.
Mrs. Head, I've received many communications from parents of students with special needs who feel that because of their child's disability, they would not be able to wear a face covering all day if mandated by the governor. How will that be handled?
Thank you for bringing up this topic. As discussed in the first question, each student truly has individualized needs. While some students with IEPs will not have documented medical conditions that prevent them from wearing a mask, some others might. Therefore, once again, we referred to that IEP team earlier. The IEP team will need to meet and decide if it is or is not appropriate for those students with documented medical conditions to wear a mask. In some cases, additional information may be requested from a pediatrician or medical professional if certain pieces are not already documented within the IEP.
And one other question that received a lot of input from folks is, I know in many of the special education classrooms, much of the instruction is done in a small group setting at kidney-shaped or horseshoe-shaped tables, which to me sounds like students would be face-to-face with the teacher and one another. How will they be kept safe in this type of learning environment?
You're correct in that most of the K-5 special ed classrooms, instruction primarily occurs at that kidney-shaped desk or table. And so this is all in addition to the face shields and the face masks that will be offered to staff. By sitting at this style desk, it allows for students and teachers to work closely in a small group to quickly provide feedback for error corrections and rapid small group instruction in order to make sure each student is protected from not just their fellow peer, but that the teacher has the necessary protection. I'm working directly with B&G Glass to create and install custom plexiglass sneeze guards that are transparent as possible to help facilitate the natural learning environment that our students and staff are so accustomed to.
That's great, Mrs. Head. Thank you for giving us that information.
You're very welcome.
With us tonight. Just to kind of close out here tonight, I just want to say thank you to everybody who logged in with us tonight. We share your concern. We share your interest in this ever-changing situation, and be comforted to know that we are in communication with our state health department as well as our State Department of Education to monitor this situation and respond. And as soon as we have new information, we will update things as we go. We here at Conrad Weiser strive to promote a safe and positive place for our students, staff, teachers, and our administrators. We also need to keep in mind that children respond in a manner similar to the adults that surround them in their lives. So as we go through this situation, make sure to provide encouragement and hope, training and guidance, and most importantly, love and support. We will persevere, we will overcome. Together, we are wiser. Thank you for logging in with us tonight, and go Scouts.